Hello and welcome to the Web Hosting Show. I am Mitch and this is episode number 16. On today's show, we're going to cover layout theft, price drops in web hosting, and a new way to get your legal papers for your web hosting business. Now, before we go any further though, I'd like to mention that this show is sponsored by the fine folks over at Web Hosting Chat. Web Hosting Chat is your number one place on the web to discuss the world of web hosting. Now, all the links, stories, and everything else mentioned on today's episode of the Web Hosting Show can be found over at the show notes. What are the show notes? Where can they be found? The show notes are a collection of the things that we've talked about on this episode, and them, along with the past interviews and past episodes that we've done so far, can be found at www.webhostingshow.com. Now, as everybody knows, I've taken a little time off this week to get some of the back-end production for this show a little more organized. A few things have been changed for various reasons, and I'll go a little deeper into that a little later in the show. The most important thing, though, is that you're here and you're listening, and hopefully you'll walk away from this knowing a little bit more about the web hosting world. This is what we like to do here, and I think we do a pretty damn good job at it too. Now, I'm not in this for the money, the fame, or the fortune. I'm in this to help as many people out there as I can with the various issues and problems there are with the wild and wacky world of web hosting. No aspect of technology is perfect, and the web hosting world is no exception. It's confusing for both web hosts and web hosting clients out there. Hopefully, with all of us discussing and thinking about these issues, and coming together, discussing everything one-on-one with hundreds, if not thousands of people online, things will get easier. But till then, I'm here to help everybody from the new guy down the street all the way down to the hosting expert who just wants to get their voice known. I'm here to talk to the web host. I'm here to talk to the web hosting client. Hopefully a web host will listen to this show, find so much more of it interesting and, a lot of good content there, and share it with some of his web hosting clients. Tell his clients to listen to this show. As many people as we can get to listen to this show, the better. Because as the number of people who are listening goes up, so do the production value. I mean, it just gets me more and more hyped to do every single episode, because with every single episode, it seems like the download numbers are going straight up. So, now let's go ahead and get this party started with some of the latest and greatest web hosting headlines. The web hosting news and headlines are brought to you by the Web Host Industry Review. The Web Host Industry Review is the place to go to get all of the latest and greatest web hosting news from around the globe. It seems like Donald Trump has found himself a new web host. Managed hosting provider Hosting.com announced on Thursday that it had been chosen to provide managed hosting services for Donald Trump's latest venture, Trump University. The new business education company strives to provide lifelong learning experiences for business professionals, small business owners, entrepreneurs, investors, and other career-focused professionals. Now, it's no surprise that Hosting.com got chosen for this. I mentioned them a couple of weeks ago on the Web Hosting Show, and they really seem to have their head together when it comes to providing web hosting for big companies and clients such as this. So, congratulations for them, and hopefully this will be a really good opportunity for a lot of people to get help from Donald Trump-like associates about the world of business. NetFront has launched a new website. Web hosting provider NetFront announced last week that it had launched a new website and new support site. The site provides easy navigation and comprehensive information about its web hosting plans and about web hosting in general. Now, this is a good idea. I wish more web hosting companies would take this kind of ball and just run with it. You need to provide as much information to your customers as you possibly can. If you think it would be any way relevant, put it somewhere on your web hosting forums, on your web hosting site, on your web hosting support site. Put it on there somewhere so your web hosting clients don't have to keep asking, well, what does this mean? What does that mean? I mean, that's one good reason to have an FAQ for all those frequently asked questions that you get from your web hosting clients. Don't leave them out there in the dark or waiting for a support person to come online. Go ahead and give them as many answers and as much content as you can. Now it seems like Apache is widening its lead, or well, so says Netcraft. The gap between Apache and Microsoft's share of the web hosting server market widens again last month, according to research and analysis firm Netcraft's June 2005 web server survey. Now, as far as the desktop goes, I think I would rather go with Windows. But on the web hosting server side, I, along with apparently a lot of other people, still like Linux and Apache for, the back-end web hosting services. I just think it's a lot more reliable. It's a lot better structured. There's a lot more you can do with it. Now, I mean, Windows and Microsoft have a bit to, catch up on, and hopefully they'll roll out a couple of new services and to try to catch up with the rest of the web hosting server world. But, it's still a long race to be had yet, and, nobody's the definite winner so far. Do you have any web hosting news you'd like to share with the entire web hosting show audience? Make sure you send it to Mitch at mitchkeeler.com, and I'll try my best to get you onto the next episode of the Web Hosting Show, the voice of the web hosting world. Every so often, you need just a quick nugget of knowledge. The web hosting tip of the week is brought to you by Mitchellaneous. Mitchellaneous is my own personal writing space where I go one-on-one with you about some of my everyday web hosting articles, random postings, and updates on my current projects. You can find it at mitch.lockergnome.net. How many times have you bought something for no apparent reason at all? Now, most of us, most of the time, will, have given it some thought before we purchase anything. I mean, anything from shoes to an MP3 player to a new computer to a new game machine. I mean, you think about why you buy it first, then you buy it. You've decided where it's going to go in your house and what you want to use it for. Now, what I want you to start doing is having the same mindset for purchasing a web hosting account. For anybody out there who just wants to buy a web hosting account, good for you. The first question I want to ask you, though, is what are you planning on doing with it? Always make sure that you have a good plan ahead of time before you get started with any big production. If you want to start a blog, make sure you go to the web host and ask them if they can handle that. If you want to start a photo gallery, maybe you're a photographer, make sure, you go to your web host and ask them if they can handle, uploading pictures and try to get their input and help for how much they'll help you on your project. You see, that's what separates a good web host from a bad web host. A good web host will go that extra mile to make a web hosting client feel happy and comfortable with the web hosting account that they've purchased. Now, not every web host, some web hosts will go on the record and say, well, we can't support script A, B, and C because we didn't make it. You don't have to support it to be helpful with it. Maybe give the client a few suggestions on some photo gallery scripts that are out there. Maybe, put somewhere on your forums the best way to get it installed on your servers. If somebody else has done it beforehand, get them to write up, a little tutorial on it, and that way you're helping even more clients who might have that same question in the future. In the long run of things, it all comes down to trying to give your client every possible help, aspect, tutorial, anything you can give them to make them thankful that they bought a web hosting account from you, do it. Do you have a web hosting tip you'd like to share with the rest of the world? Then make sure you send it to Mitch at mitchkeeler.com and I'll get it onto the next episode of the Web Hosting Show. All of my web hosting thoughts, views, and ideas are sponsored by Data Center Talk. Data Center Talk is the best set of forums on planet Earth to talk about web hosting data centers. HostingCon is coming soon. The event will take place June 6th to June 7th at the Hyatt Regency O'Hare in Rosemount, Illinois. Over the past few weeks, my web hosting friends and fellow workers in the web hosting industry have had 2 questions for me. Why are you not going, and are you going? Now, I'm not going to be able to make it to the festivities this year, but hopefully by the time 2006 HostingCon rolls around the corner, I'll be able to rub shoulders with some of the web hosting elite out there. At one time, I thought that the web hosting industry was filled with nothing more than a bunch of cutthroats and money-hungry scumbags that just wanted to make $1 or $2 off a couple of innocent people. But over the past few months, and the more I do this show and talk with more leading professionals in the web hosting industry, I'm really happy to say that I was totally wrong. Now, I don't know how many of you have noticed, but there has been some drop in the price of web hosting out there. I recently linked over to a post at Host Search that discussed the dropping of web hosting prices and how it seems to have been creating more competition in the web hosting industry. It's no secret that if you drop the price in any business, I don't care if you're selling shoes, mixed nuts, or, anything at all, if you drop the prices, it will lead to more competition inside that business. I hate to say it, but more often than not, the lowest price hosting provider seems to be getting the most hosting business. I'd rather see folks out there being more focused on support and services that they're getting than the price. On the other hand, though, having a low price out there is it's sexier for the consumer to see. They want to see that they're getting, a cheap price, something that's affordable for them, something that's more affordable than another guy down the street. And I don't know if I like the way that the web hosting world is going with this. I think things should be more focused on what kind of service, what kind of support you're getting, not are you getting the cheapest price. There are a lot of cheap web hosting providers out there that totally suck at giving support. There are a lot of them that are good at giving support. There are a lot of expensive web hosts that suck at giving support. And there are a lot of expensive web hosting companies that rock at giving good web hosting support. The price does not determine how good the web hosting is. Now, I'd really like to see like a study or something done by, a separate, third party to see which model is more reliable. Should web hosts have higher prices and sell fewer web hosting accounts, or have cheaper prices and sell more accounts? Right now I'm looking more of it as a question of, which came first, the chicken or the egg. Right now I'd say it's pretty even, in my opinion, about which way you can make money more, depending on the sales and marketing behind it. But I want you to give me some feedback about this hot topic, and hopefully I'll be able to go into it a little deeper in a future episode of the Web Hosting Show. Now, I don't know how many of you picked this up this week or read about it, but tophosts.com has named their version of the top web hosting company out there today. Now, the only problem with these, choosing the best hosting provider for the month, for the year, of all time is that everybody has their own opinion. There is no real way to definitively say Company A or Company B is the best hosting provider out there today. There's just no way to do it. There's always another web hosting company that may be doing things better or worse depending on the situation. Now, there are a lot of people out there that probably deserve this title as well. There are a lot of good web hosting companies out there. As long as your web hosting company is willing to put forth with great customer service, excellent servers, and top-notch support, I don't see why they shouldn't be number one on the web hosting companies out there today. Then again, I tend to be a little nicer than most. Now, the company that Top Hosts went for this year as the greatest web hosting company was Hostway. Now, I've never really heard anything bad about Hostway's services, so, all I can do right now is congratulate them for this new title. And, well, there won't be anybody singing, "There goes Mr. Greatest Web Hosting Company Ever," like the whole Miss America type way, but hopefully they'll at least get a crown or a graphic or a banner they can display to other web hosting clients out there that may be interested in their services. For all the porn web hosts out there, and I have no idea how many are listening to this show, but you can now get .xxx domain names. I mean, does anybody think, though, that giving porn its own kind of subdomain name is going to corner or categorize its own little corner of the internet any better? In my humble web hosting opinion, now it's only my opinion, not anybody else's, I'll go out on a limb and say that this will just give a couple of new domain name sales surges while people pick up the good .xxx domain names. And once they're all taken, things should go right back to normal pretty quickly. So the domain name registers just picked up one more way to make a quick buck. Would anybody ever buy mitchkeeler.xxx? Well, trust me, nobody really wants to see that website out there. Now, if you've listened to this show totally and you're listening to it a second time, you may have noticed that a couple of segments and things have been dropped, added to, and changed. I've dropped both the hosting questions and answers segments as well as the web hosting minute from my whole production line for the weekly web hosting show output there for the customers and clients and web hosts out there that want to listen to it. Well, the number one reason why I've dropped the email segment is that we just haven't been getting the questions in. I mean, if somebody still wants to email me and ask me a question, I'll find a way to fit it into the show. But right now, I don't have that many questions coming in, so I figure, why waste time on something that people apparently are not that interested in? Now, the same could be said for the web hosting minute. I mean, that was more of an experiment, if anything. I just wanted to see if it would increase the number of listeners that keep people's attentions onto the website and hold them over to the next week. But it didn't exactly work out the way I'd planned. So that just gives me more reason to put more focus into the big show, the main product, the web hosting show right here. Now, if anybody has any ideas for segments or different shows or different things they'd like to hear, I'm always willing to try something new. And if enough people, email me, give me feedback, let me know they want to see it on here, I will bend over backwards to try to make it happen. And also keep telling your friends and family about the web hosting show as well. As the download numbers increase each and every week, that just gives me more and more motivation to do a better and better show. Do you have a web hosting topic of discussion that you'd like to hear me cover on this show? Then make sure you send me an email to mitch@mitchkeeler.com and I'll try my best to get it onto the very next episode of the Web Hosting Show. All of the Web Hosting Show's design help is sponsored by BrowseHost. BrowseHost is the most comprehensive web hosting directory out there today. Now, I thought this week, instead of looking at a website and trying to decide how we could make it better, I'd look at a standard problem that's out there in the web hosting world today. Heck, this problem isn't just limited to web hosts either. I think just about everybody has this problem. The other day, a good friend of mine and listener to this very show was telling me about somebody stealing his new website layout after he'd just shown it to them while it was in pre-production. The friend of a friend, in this case, turned around and used the HTML and designed for himself. Now, I can't even get started about how dirty this really is. Folks like this should not be able to get away with such acts, but, such is the way of the internet. That is why it is so important for everybody to follow a key rule when designing or having a team design a new website layout for you. Keep your website design and layout secret. The layout should not see the eyes of anybody that you feel that would hurt your, production value, or anybody that you cannot trust. Now, I know that this is kind of hard to, throw at folks that are not super paranoid like I am, but it's a good idea to keep things under wraps until you're ready for the public eye to see it. While I'm working on a new design layout, I don't even like people walking behind me when they're in the same room there. Now, I'm not afraid that anybody here is going to steal my designs. I just like to keep things to myself till I'm ready for the public eye to see it. So for anybody out there that has a new website layout or design that they're working on, you better double think it before, you share it with a friend or colleague that you think you can trust. I mean, you better know that you can trust them before you show them something that secretive. Because right now, a good layout and a good design could make or break a web hosting company. There's a lot of content issues there too, but if things are pretty enough for a client to look at, they'll stay there a little bit longer. And I think that's the big key problem out there today. Do you need some help with your website design? Would you like me to just come take a look at it and let you know what I think? Make sure you send me an email at mitch@mitchkeeler.com, and I'll try to get your questions answered and your website reviewed on the very next episode of The Web Hosting Show. The Web Hosting Show's Website of the Week is brought to you by Banners World. Banners World is your number one place to visit to get all of your website graphics, banners, and designs done. This week's web hosting website of the week is hostlegal.com. Any good web hosting owner out there will tell you that it is a pain in the proverbial rear to get together with a lawyer, draw up all the paperwork and contracts needed to get together with your terms of service, acceptable use policy, and all the other things a web hosting company needs to survive out there. But thanks to the folks over at Host Legal, though, some of these problems out there have become a little less relevant. Host Legal will provide you, for a price, with everything from frequently asked questions to terms of service. They'll explain on their own FAQ that the services they provide are not really meant to substitute having a good lawyer handy, but instead it's like a helping hand when it comes to sorting through some of the legalities that you might go through when setting up or running a web hosting company. This is a really good idea, and honestly, I don't know why nobody else has come up with it sooner. If you have any questions for them, they'll be more than happy to answer you at sales@hostlegal.com. So check them out and make sure that you let them know that the Web Hosting Show sent you there. Do you have a website that deserves to be the next web hosting website of the week? Make sure you send it to Mitch@MitchKeeler.com, and I'll promise you, I'll guarantee it, if it's good enough, it'll get into the next episode of the Web Hosting Show. Well, that's it for this week's show. Make sure you send me all of your feedback, thoughts, suggestions, and ideas to Mitch@MitchKeeler.com, or stop by the Web Hosting Show's fan forums. Next week we'll be doing more of the same. I am Mitch Keeler, and you have been listening to the Web Hosting Show, the voice of the web hosting world. Hello, I am Mitch Keeler, and thank you for listening to the Web Hosting Show. Web hosting for the audio files used on this show is brought to you by the fine folks over at Web Hosting Chat. The syndication feed for this podcast can be found at feeds.feedburner.com/webhostingshow. Interested in helping me out? Tell a couple of your friends about this show. The more listeners we get each and every week, the better the show's production will get. If you want to listen to any of the past episodes, interviews, or anything else I've posted up, links can be found at www.webhostingshow.com. If you're interested in finding out more about me or some of my other projects, please visit www.mitchkeeler.com. Tune in again real soon, and hopefully the next episode of the Web Hosting Show will be even better than this one. Thanks.